Okay, so I'm doing securing the endpoint, helping the users help themselves, or protecting the users, more like it. So, who am I? I'm D-Tom on IRC, Derek S. Thomas on Twitter, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm a security consultant. I do single sign-on. I do a lot of authentication management, vulnerability assessments, kind of working into pen tests and security information management. Dad, security practitioner. Try to go to ISSA, Misec, join all the groups I can here. So why am I here? So when I started at BioPoint, we do SC magazine reviews, and one of them was for endpoint security products. So I got the opportunity to do about 12 different products, and that's pretty cool. And there's a lot of new features and stuff that I found interesting, more features than I had really thought of in an endpoint security. We also did network access control, which is kind of a new technology I'd never worked with personally, and I think is kind of maturing now. Hadn't really been implemented in a lot of places. So we evaluated all these products from an operational standpoint. We didn't do, virus scanning of like a gig of different viruses and stuff like that. So more operational, making sure that all the features are there, easy to work with, and that's it. So. What is endpoint security? So first thing that comes to mind is antivirus. So, pretty much that's what I think a lot of people think of. I don't think they think of, endpoint security being anything else. So, we can wrap it up right now. No, I'm just kidding. But really, what is it? It's software that secures the endpoint using a variety of technologies, more than just antivirus. So, it's not just antivirus anymore. Old technologies. I don't know if antivirus came before firewalls or firewall came. Those are probably the two oldest technologies, but there's a lot of new ones. Application whitelisting. There's new HIPs and HIDs products. So there's some new features that can really help secure your endpoints for your customers and employees. So why should you care? Obviously because of Australia, right? Would that be the first thing you guys would think, right? No. So I read a report from Australia, their government. So have you guys read through this at all? It was, they did a study of all their intrusions, and they found the top 4 reasons would decrease their intrusions by 85%. And I thought, wow, that's pretty crazy. Four things you can do to help reduce it. And these top 4 were could all be done through endpoint security. Patch applications, patch operating systems. These are pretty common things, but what formal processes do you guys have? And you may or may not. Application whitelisting too. I haven't really heard of many places implementing that. And I know when I do hear it's too restrictive. The users will complain, the CEO will complain. But there's some new technologies to address those issues. Domain local administrative, more operational or configuration of Active Directory, but that doesn't really fall in endpoint. So those are the top 4 that decreased their intrusion by 85%. But the study went on, and there's a variety of things that are implemented in endpoint security, like HostBased. That's probably pretty small, huh, guys? But this is HostBased intrusion detection and prevention. Whitelisted email. A lot of endpoint security products will have some sort of email filtering or web content filtering, which includes domain whitelisting, some whitelisting known SSL domains that you would use if it's possible. So that might help the issues that you're having with, DigiNotar, things like that. Inspection of Office files, that's macros, things like that. Workstation firewalls to deny by default incoming traffic and outgoing traffic. That's part of an endpoint. Antivirus, of course, which I thought was interesting. That it's down number 21 on the list. So using heuristic and signature-based detection. And then portable media control. I don't know, do you guys implement any type of portable media control at all? USBs, CDs, anything like that? Do you? Right. Right. Okay. Okay, yeah, I read that. So you were having the issue with trying to transfer the PowerPoint onto his laptop because it was locked down. So that's great security, improved workflow, huh? So yeah, Do you guys use blacklisting or whitelisting? You know, like maybe you whitelist a CD-ROM, or do you blacklist everything? And okay, yeah, yeah. And that's some of the technologies that's pretty cool. I thought is that you can whitelist based on vendor, based on certain characteristics of the USB, and counter a lot of that. So a lot of healthcare organizations worked with too are really starting to get into that. And but then they implement it, and their scanners are offline, and it's not configured correctly. They encounter a lot of issues with that, but there's ways to deal with it. So this is basic about antivirus. This is a basic protection mechanism. You hear a lot of people say, antivirus is dead. Buy our product. Insert other product here. But it's actually, it can be effectively clean malware. So I was looking at some stuff. Actually, when I was looking up some research, I found a report by John Oberheide and he was doing cloud-based. So a lot of the new cloud-based may have came from that. But heuristic and generic scanners, just scanning unknown viruses or malware without even executing the file, can catch at best 60%, which is pretty decent just for signature-based static analysis. So, but on-demand scanners can reach up to 98% detection of known viruses. So they get up there. That's just for virus scanning, not implementing any sort of behavioral analysis. So HIDs or HIPs would actually increase that a lot. So that's something to look for, because when I was looking at the sheet, there were some that were way down there, or they'd be 98%, but the false positives would be out, would blow the roof off of it. So, well, you might say, what about the other 2%? What about the other 40% of unknown malware? So how do you address those? The host-based intrusion detection and prevention is where that comes in, and most of them come in. They usually have some sort of fancy name with it. I think Symantec or Norton had Sonar, and they don't say HIPs or HIDs, and they don't really tell you what they do, but that's basically what it is. So HIDs is host-based intrusion detection and prevention. Usually, if not always, augments antivirus in their products, monitors activities, resources, log files, registry, system integrity. So when you add that to the antivirus, you get it's pretty secure in terms of stopping malware. So here's the fancy names. When I was doing the research on their products, they always say HIDs, and they had their fancy name, but they never even said what they did. So, I looked up OSSEC, which is open source. McAfee just picked them up, actually. But, I just found that out when I was looking it up. They claim they're going to continue the project, so. What, you guys McAfee fans, or? Yeah. Oh, are you? You guys all used OSSEC before? Really? I've never really worked with it, but it seemed pretty cool. Centralized policy and management. And it looked like it incorporates some of the main host-based intrusion detection features: file integrity monitoring, rootkit detection, log monitoring. And one thing I thought was cool about OSSEC too is they integrate with a lot of SIM products, Q1, ArcSight, and several others, I believe. So, the next piece of technology, when we're reviewing all these products, we did about 12 or 15 for endpoint security. And some will be antivirus, like Sophos had antivirus, HIPs, HIDs, it had whitelisting technology, peripheral lockdown, and so they all incorporated a variety of technologies. Some were strictly whitelisting, some were a combination, some were just strictly antivirus and HIDs, but, I worked with a couple of real good whitelisting technologies. And that's what I was talking about when Shady Rat came out. I thought, if they had their whitelisting technology, wouldn't be able to execute. You exploit a vulnerability, you wouldn't be able to execute. But then at the same time, all your users would be mounting a coup d'etat or whatever, coup d'etat, and they'd be wanting to install their Spotify or whatever you guys use, so. It restricts known good. I always thought that was the way to go, because blacklisting, how long is that going to go on for when you get, 5 million signatures or something like that? So, it's good, so restrict to that. But, this could be hardware and software. You can do whitelisting on your USB devices or applications, but and it's much more effective. It wouldn't really replace AV, although some of the vendors would say, we installed our whitelisting and they got rid of their AV. So, you can still exploit Internet Explorer, even though it's known good, and then you can still, if there's a vulnerability there, the system could be compromised. Exactly. So, that's true, but it's maybe it's the devil you know. I'm not sure, but yeah, yeah. It depends. So, some of the criticism of whitelisting I was reading was that if the code was running on the same process ID, that it wouldn't pick it up. Although, when I talked to these engineers at Bit9, they said that they used memory monitoring, some sort of memory monitoring software, and if it was executed in memory and didn't know about it, it wouldn't be allowed and be blocked. But I question that. I'm not positive if that always works. It may work in certain circumstances. I'm not quite sure, but, that is a criticism of it, and that's one reason why you wouldn't want to completely, drop everything else off. You might implement your heads or something like that would monitor the behavior of that. So, but I asked him about that, and he said that it can help stop, at least in some circumstances. Um, yeah, yeah. I think it depends on the quality. When I was looking at it, you also monitor all the DLLs of the calls. You can, when you're monitoring the applications, so they know what applications they call, the DLLs that it'll call, and when you're in monitor mode. And I'll talk about the different modes that can run in. But so I think it depends. If you put it on lockdown before that, I think it would stop that. But um, it's only going to help. So it's rarely implemented because your users want to install whatever they want. I think it's been around for a long time. How long has Microsoft had their software restriction policies? Since Windows Vista. So how long? Yeah, it's been some years now. So well, AppLocker is different than software restriction policies, though. I think because AppLocker. Yeah. 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 So I was wondering if it's been around since 2003. I wasn't quite sure about that. Yeah. 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 Although I think that comes with some inherent problems there, but yeah. So yeah, that's when you get into the variety of ways of restricting the applications. And it can be very difficult to administer. So if you're administering AD and you're putting the software restriction policies and not AppLocker, you're doing software restriction policies, you got to go into Active Directory and make any changes anytime your users want something new. But there's some new, so basically you're putting users think they're in jail. So that's that for you. But it's been evolving. So the application whitelisting, some of the products I tested out were pretty cool. You install a product that's agent-based, and it'll monitor all the applications. You put it in monitor mode, so you see every application that your users are running. And every day, you might check that out and get a good baseline of what's currently in your environment now. And some of them will do, so like Bit9 does reputation monitoring. They have a hash database of billions of applications, and they can tell you whether the reputation of that application. So basically every type of upgraded, Office or Internet Explorer, I was checking it out, and Nmap was coming up and things like that. So that was kind of a lower, Nmap may not be blocked, but that's a pretty low reputation for general users to use it. So in those applications, it'll also tell you if they've been scanned by antivirus. So it gave you a lot of interesting info, and it picked up like 85, 90% of the applications that I had just ran through myself. So it gives you a good indication of what should be there and what shouldn't be there. That's just purely monitor mode. So you can also put it in block and asks, which I think would be very good to implement because it'd make your users think twice. Should I really install this? Because they'll say install, and then it's going to pop up a message say, this is going to be logged. Is this part of your security policy? Do it, and then it'll log it, send a ticket, or just send the log message to the administrator. So I think that's kind of cool. It'll make them think twice about installing their new Flash game or whatever. And then there's a straight lockdown mode. So you might create a baseline, and then one of the products is really just, it looked like on the user interface, a big easy button. And you just press it down and lock everything down, and no users could install any other applications. So those are 3 modes, depending on how restrictive you want to be. And the guy, they recommend that you put it in monitor at least first, and then you can, start increasing the security there. And so, with those, I think if you implemented that, would be workable for most users at some point, maybe even just monitoring or blocking ads. So, and there's definitely some use cases. Point of sale systems, definitely. You only have a couple applications running. You don't want anything else. Your servers too. You might want to whitelist of your servers. You have several applications running on each server. I think certain compliance mandates, they mandate you only have one specific reason for each server application running. If you can't lock down your end users, put it in monitor mode or block an ads. That'll just make them think twice. Should I really install it instead of just willy-nilly, installing whatever they want. So, this is where you can define, the applications can be defined in a variety of things now, where before it would just be path or the name of the application. Now you can do it on, the certificates. Most, like Microsoft signs theirs, Adobe signs theirs, so you can install anything from an accepted certificate provider, like I said, Adobe or Microsoft. Application path isn't really that secure. You can do it by application path, though, if it's in this directory or in your program files. You can create an installation location, so any files, any executables from a certain shared directory. So if you're an administrator, you can put your directory in there, and that'll be all your approved applications. Application hash, this can get kind of hard, though, with a lot of updates. And you can also do it by vendor. So, most vendors will, I think that goes wrong with signing the applications. And like I said, you got to be careful because, like we were talking about, it may not protect vulnerable applications. It may aid in detection and stop some, but I don't believe it'll stop all. They may still compromise Adobe or Internet Explorer. And it seems like the applications we rely on are the applications that are most vulnerable. Everybody has Adobe and everybody has Internet Explorer. But there's some new technologies that address these problems. So here's one. Like Bit9, I thought, and Lumention were 2 of the big application whitelisting products. Bit9, when I was talking to the guys, says that they use a large hash database. And they claim that they had Stuxnet hash long before it ever came out, like months before it showed up, which I thought that was pretty, yeah. So, well, the reputation was unknown, because there was a lot that were unknown at the time, and if you could submit a reputation in a cloud-based, and then they would check that out. But at the point, they didn't know, because I think Stuxnet was dormant for a while, and then, from what I know. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's interesting, and yeah, that is a problem with crowdsourcing in general. But I know that one of the things with Bit9 was they ran like multiple antivirus engines on a lot of theirs, so they had 7 A, B products, and they were running on all the applications that they had. And so if they were submitted a hash, I think they would have to test themselves, or they would just have a crowdsourced, not an official. Yeah, because I don't think that they would. Yeah, because if you had a botnet saying, submitting a 5-star ratings. Yeah. Bit9 though, their hash database is actually used by Mandiant uses one, which I'm not sure. They do a lot of incident response, I believe, and stuff like that. The government actually uses it too for forensics activities because they're all known hashes. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I notice with these products, every product, they focus on one thing. Like I said, Bit9 is whitelisting. McAfee as Antivirus, and they had good reporting, and Sophos had, they had everything, but not one thing was very good. But a lot of them would have, like, they would throw in DLP, so Sophos had some DLP, but wasn't as good as some of the pure play DLP providers. Checkpoint had encryption, and Sky Recon had encryption. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Sky Recon or Storm Shield. They were cheap, and they had a lot of cool features. But so they did full disk. A lot of them have full disk encryption and on-the-fly encryption, and the hardware restrictions. It seems like they'd always throw in hardware restrictions. It would be limited in scope as far as being a whitelist or blacklist based on the vendor or the variety characteristics for your peripherals. So that's some of the other tech that they added in. Those are pretty straightforward. There's not much to that. So how do you enforce? Employees may have endpoint security in place, but the signatures and patches updated. So you may have all your endpoint security, but I've worked at several places, and I check on it, and the signatures are outdated. Like, how do they get outdated? But somehow they manage to. You have contractors and guests that come into your network. How do you enforce their security standards? That's a big problem, especially with the bring your own device, and now contractors and outside workers and just collaboration in general is increasing. So how do you control what's actually on your network now? It's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. So, one of the other technologies we did was network access control. And we did 5 products, and every product was completely different. The way they enforced it, which I was surprised, they all used a very different technique, and they were still pretty effective. To me, it seems like it's still a maturing technology. And do you guys have any type of NAC in place? Yeah, I've noticed a lot of places, and that was one thing too with the endpoint security. A lot of them claim NAC, but it would be like Wi-Fi, external like VPN, or internal network. But so yeah, I'll drop you to a portal, and then you sign in. Or does it actually do any checking or? Okay. Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So it's still dropping you down a level of admission or access. Okay. That's true, but it's still dropping you down a level, and that's what NAC seems like it was all about, was checking your endpoint either through a dissolvable agent or an actual agent installed. So if you're a guest, they would divert you to a portal page and have a dissolvable agent scan it for patches, scan it for updated signatures. All the products had a database of however many antivirus products are out there, and they could tell the signatures, and they would also do auto remediation. Some of them would, which is pretty cool, but so that's how you enforce your security policy. Everyone has a security policy, but they really enforce, the people that are on the network. Then you're being dropped down to guest mode and internet access. It depends, though, Yeah. So that's true, yeah. But generally, that's operations, and you can count it out with everything. But so most of the dissolvable agents I saw were just Java. So if you'd have to click, accept the Java applet and run that on your computer. So I don't know. I find you start I guess Java could be restricted in a lot of places. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, the auto remediation would also be like Windows doing an automatic Windows update, and then it was different. That was one thing that was different too. So some of them they called it auto remediation, but it'd be allowing you to access only Windows to get the patches. So you would have to manually update your computer, or manually update your signatures from that, would detect, or manually, or just allow you to access an AAV product to download. So I noticed they get pretty complicated. And they were policy based, so you could have different levels you'd be dropped down to. So check your OS patch if that passed. Check your antivirus patch if that passed. But you didn't have a right Windows version or Internet Explorer version. It would drop you down into an appropriate level of access. So you could get pretty complicated. Put you in VLAN. It would create special VLANs. Depending on how they access your route. Your switches or stuff like that. So, what they would do is they would monitor the network passively. So usually they had two Ethernet ports, one for passive, and then one would be a management interface. So, I noticed one of them I thought was really interesting. Is the guy called it so how they would direct you into these different levels of access. One guy called it ARP redirection, which I asked him, does that really mean just ARP cache poisoning? He said, yeah, and that's one thing I thought, isn't there a lot of security products that will, check, yeah, for ARP redirection they called it. But that's how so they would just ARP cache poison you, force you into their portal, and it would auto-remediate right there. It was a pretty flexible solution, though, because you could just drop that in, not have to really deal with all the switches, and actually, some of them would SSH into a switch, or some of them would use SNMP. So a lot of places don't have SNMP turned on, so it really depends on your network. There was also DHCP, Sophos. You would install like a DHCP software on your server, and that's how it would track the users and block you. It would change your DNS records on that. So when you do request your address, so they were pretty invasive, and every single one said we're non-invasive. But I'm like, ARP cache poisoning. Yes, no, that's pretty. Yes. So. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So that's why I said it's an evolving technology. One of them, you would SSH directly into your Cisco routers. So it's kind of iffy. SNMP. I don't know if you guys run SNMP. There's any, most places I go to, they don't really. Yeah. Yeah, but so you would need your private string, and it would write to your switch and your router configs and stuff like that. So that's kind of, if that goes haywire, who knows what would happen there. And that was the problem. It could lock down people. It could lock down your whole network if you make one wrong policy mistake. So you got to be very careful with that. No, if you want to have fun one day, just, yeah. Yes. But, so that'd be interesting. So that's what they said. They said that a lot of, generally it'd be like, more like what you do, Wolf, like the wireless portal, and there'd be like maybe 2 zones or several trusted zones based on, a minimal level of security of antivirus or things like that. But it was pretty fine-grained. You could control the browser versions, your application versions, things like that. You could drop them down into a level where they only have internet access or can only access updates. That was all up to you. So, yeah, it was interesting, definitely. So the local agents will examine your assets for compliance. So rules are applied based on this compliance level. So the compliance to your antivirus policy, your patch management policy, your application policy. So, guests would come in to be redirected to the portal with a dissolvable agent. So you don't have to really install anything. And then the rules will be applied based on the findings from that. So, how effective your antivirus is important. How effective it is to monitor your applications and restrict your access. It's all very important. But one thing I found differed among all the products was the reporting and the centralized administrators. Some of them had horrible reporting, if any at all. So that's pretty important to me. You want to show your bosses you're actually doing something or progress is being made. Otherwise they don't really know. But in centralized administrators, some of the administration consoles were impossible to use, slow to use. Some of them were very good. Depends if you like a web-based or just a console-based. So it depends what you like. So McAfee had a really good web-based console, with reporting. What was it? The e-policy orchestrator. As far as just that, yeah, it was kind of complicated to use, but as far as reporting goes, I thought it was pretty decent. Ooh, yeah, it's complicated. But you're right. No, it was not intuitive though. Like you had to go through it, but custom. Oh, really? So yeah, they didn't tell me that, but the intuitive factor. I'm not that In about 2 days, I was able to pick up a lot of it if you go through the documentation. So I figure that's decent. And then if you're gonna be working with it for a while, it's not gonna be that big of a deal. Yeah. So, but anything you have that's highly customizable isn't really going to be intuitive too. If you can customize everything, it's going to be you're not going to do that in an hour or two. So, Sophos was pretty good. It was very easy, and it was almost the opposite, but very well. It was console based. Had reporting, had your basic reports, easy to use, easy to see everything in one tabbed interface you go through. Sophos had a variety of services they provided. So, you could install that if you had nothing, and it would bring you to a pretty acceptable level. And easily do it. Agents are easily deployed, installed. The console can be installed anywhere. So, I like that. Yeah. And we gave Checkpoint very high. Checkpoint, is a little bit more expensive. Had good reporting. And I believe it was web-based, but it had blades. You would install blades for each service, and they had encryption where the other ones didn't. So you could do full disk encryption and on-the-fly encryption. So it really depends on the services you're looking for, what you already have, and type of interface you like. But like what I'm saying is that the ease of use is very important, because if it's too complicated, you're not going to use it. It doesn't really matter how good it is at picking up malware or locking people down, because you're not going to have a clue how to use it, or just not have time to use it. So it may be better to pick up something easier than something fully featured. So you have to be able to effectively monitor and maintain. So that's a problem we come around a lot, is people buy it but they don't monitor and maintain it properly. And if you don't do that, it's pretty much pointless, just sitting there collecting dust. So utilizing these technologies, you increase your security by 85%, according to Australia. Yeah. Effective use, and sometimes less is more. Like I'm saying, if it's easier, you might get more out of it. So that's about it. If you guys have any questions.